Why, hello, it's MexiParagraph here, and this is a Dauntless beginner's tutorial. Now, let's summarize real quick. Dauntless is a free-to-play Monster Hunter-like game set on floating islands. You're basically like that one jackass in a movie like Cloverfield or Godzilla who tries to kill the monster with a steak knife. This guide is going to assume that you have read the basic information for the game, so down here in the moves list, over here general info, and this is all the basic mechanics like dodging and status effects and damage, all that. So this guide's more just to expound upon things that the game doesn't explain to you. So first up, let's go over weapons. Dauntless has 7 unique weapons, and I recommend you play every single one and find out which ones you love playing and hate. Let's give a quick overview of the weapons and how they play. First up, we got chain blades. These are a very safe DPS weapon, allowing for high mobility gameplay and fast attacks. It's hard to say no to flying through the air. Swords, the true jack-of-all-trades weapon. Swords offer part breaks, mobility, easy interrupts, great combos, and more. Phoenix Labs really did a great job with the recent rework of swords. Austrian repeaters. These are a safe support weapon that lets you buff your team's attack speed and focus specific parts for precise gameplay, all from a safe-ish distance. Safer, I should say. That's garbage. Aether Strikers, a DPS stagger weapon that offers high mobility, high burst damage, and satisfying combos. Pikes. Dauntless's wound weapon. Pikes can be a bit odd, but offer up fast part breaks in team play, and some interesting, maybe off-meta sort of attacks. Try them out, they're fun. Axes. The weapon with hella thick damage numbers, thick with like 4 Cs. Axes don't excel at DPS, but they offer huge amounts of burst damage in a single hit, brutal part breaks, and some really satisfying staggers. Next up, and last, hammers. Hammers are like slow, slightly harder to use Aether Strikers, but what they lack in speed, they make up for with the ability to melt behemoth health away with the highest DPS in the game, and, of course, great stagger potential. And a quick showcase of elemental weapons to craft. Nasher for neutral is a solid choice Rage Hunter with a technique cell and a utility cell. Hard to say no to. Next up, you got Hellion. Where the hell is Hellion? There we go. Hellion. Also a solid choice for any fire weapon. Overpower and that unique effect are truly overpowered. Hi, it's Future Paragraph here. I just want to say, cringe. Thank you. Please enjoy the rest of the video. Skarn for the terror weapons. Weighted strikes is pretty much garbage, but that unique effect gives you health shields that can stack almost as high as your actual health. That's really cool to pull off. For electric, you're going to be looking at Drask. Where's Drask? There it is. The Drask weapons. The unique effect gives you 25% damage versus behemoth tails, or in some cases versus the head. Nothing to sneeze at. Very good cell setup. Love it. Let's see, what else we got? Boreas for frost. Boreas weapons are probably the easiest accessible weapons and one of the strongest weapon types in the game. +3 conditioning will help with stamina management. The unique effect is truly great on chain blades. Power cell and a defense cell to help you stay alive and do some damage. And just a quick tip, when choosing weapons, I recommend you stick to a max of 2 weapons. At least one that does slash damage. Preferably, both of them will complement each other, so something fast and then something hard-hitting but slow. An example of that would be something like hammers, which can deal a lot of DPS, deal a lot of stagger damage, and then something like a sword that can actually sever behemoth tails and horns. And just a quick aside on what I mean by slash damage, there are 3 different kinds of weapon damage in the game. One is slash, one is blunt, and one is piercing. Slash damage can be found on chain blades, swords, repeaters, oddly enough, and the pike heavy attack, as well as axes. That kind of attack will be able to sever behemoth tails and horns very effectively. It is It is also the only kind of attack that can sever behemoth tails, which is why I say keep one slash damage weapon on you. Blunt damage can be found on hammers and aether strikers, bam, and that basically means that you get extra stagger damage when you aim for the behemoth head. And finally, piercing damage, only found on the pike, mainly on the light attack. It is the damage type responsible for wounds. Now let's talk about armors with a crash course in cell economy. This game's meta is all about dealing as much damage to the behemoth as possible. That means that just about all of the best cells help contribute to your raw damage output in a significant way. Please observe this dummy build. These cells include Evasive Fury, Overpower, Catalyst, Conduit, Rage Hunter, and Zeal. All of these are great cells which are easy to achieve for new players, with the exception of Catalyst, which is not native to easily accessible armors and will have to be dropped from patrols or crafted from the middleman vendor. This bastard, right here. There are also defense cells that are worth taking for avoiding annoying status effects such as being frozen. These cells are Bloodless for wounded and crippling wounded status effects, Insulated for shocked status effect, Shell Shock for the shell shock status effect, and Warmth for the chilled and frozen status effects. Please note that these cells usually need +6 to be fully effective, so you can ignore the status entirely. So please only use these whenever you are really struggling against an encounter or behemoth, as you will need to invest some serious resources into them. Also, please note that Fireproof was not included in this section because I believe the better alternative is Molten. You not only get to ignore fire, but you get a small DPS buff. That's just big brain play right there. So, to recap, Rage Hunter, Overpower, Evasive Fury, Conduit, Zeal, Catalyst, and Molten, with Bloodless, Insulated, Shell Shock Resist, and Warmth being advisable only if you are truly stuck. For the most part though, just use what you got if you're starting out. Chances are you don't have good cells. Alright, next up we got Lantern overviews. So let's just take a quick look at, let's just take a quick look at the different lanterns that we can get as a new player. Recruit's Lantern, switch as soon as possible. Drask's Eye, the best lantern in most cases in my opinion. 30% increased damage for 6 seconds is perfect for those high burst power weapons that I've been talking about this whole time. Next up would be the Embermane's Rapture with an attack speed boost for 25 seconds. The hold to cast Fireball does not hit very well and it's kind of hard to pull off, but when you can, it's pretty solid. Koshai's Bloom is going to be a good one if you're constantly getting hit. You get health back for damage that you deal, and you get an extra dash for your lantern hold, which does a fair amount of terror damage. Kind of a win-win. I'd also like to go ahead and point out, before we finish up armors, that there are different resistances on armors, just as how there are different kinds of attack power on weapons. You'll note that neutral armors do not have any perks or downsides. That's because they're truly neutral. However, elemental armors such as Stride of Thorns from a Koshai, which is a Terra armor, will get bonus armor defense against Terra attacks, but will be weaker against lightning attacks. For the most part, when it comes to damage calculations, the armor that you wear does not matter too much. The main thing you want to avoid is wearing a full set of, let's say, Terra armor against an electric behemoth. That's going to be a bad time. It is more important for you to have the right weapon for the right behemoth. Now let's talk about a good build for beginners to use. Now this build right here will get you pretty well through the beginning of the game, maybe even through the middle game if you get truly good in a short amount of time. So let's explain a little bit about this build. First up, we got the Hellplate Cask from a Hellion with +3 Rage Hunter on it. We have the Hellplate Curious from a Hellion again with Molten. We have Nasher Grips from, you guessed it, a Nasher with more Rage Hunter. And we got Dance of the Swarm from a, my mind is blanking, Karabac with +3 Conditioning, which as I mentioned before will help with stamina management. Now, why did I choose these armor pieces? I chose them because Molten is native on the Hell Plate Curious, which will help with your DPS and help with reducing fire damage, which is all too annoying when you first start up. At least for me it was. I freaking hated Hellion. Overpower is a very solid damage cell that applies to pretty much any behemoth that you stagger, break apart on, or interrupt. Rage Hunter is a solid damage cell for any behemoth because all behemoths in the game have an enraged state that you can exploit. Conditioning, already explained it. Conduit, now this one comes with a small caveat. Conduit helps increase your attack speed and the attack speed of all slayers in your party, but do not use +3 Conduit unless you are by yourself. The reason being, if you have +3 Conduit and one of your teammates has +6 Conduit, your +3 will overwrite their +6 because glitch, and it will nerf the entire party, so switch out to literally anything else. Good recommendations for this: Aetherborn, which, bam, using an Aether Vent gains 75%, 75 healing and have a 25% chance not to consume a vent charge. Very good for team play with a bunch of noobs when you all are probably going to the Aether Vent. Finally, you have Evasive Fury. After dodging through an attack, gain 12% attack speed for 16 seconds. Very good cell for just starting out, increases your DPS, and when combined with +3 Conduit will net you 20% increased attack speed, which is where the first soft cap is for increasing your attack speed. Now just a few more notes about this build. Dance of Swarm can actually be swapped out for the Nasher Tread with a +3 tough if survivability is an issue for you. All the same, but I think the +3 conditioning might be more helpful. The Lantern can be swapped out for Koshai's Bloom if you are having trouble staying alive, as it is very good for keeping you alive, but most of the time I recommend staying with the Drask's Eye. And you may have noticed that I kept this spot here for your weapon on the basic training sword. That is because when you are just first playing, you want to focus on getting the right weapon for the right behemoth. You want to fight Hellion with a frost weapon. You want to fight Drask with a terror weapon. Doesn't matter what the cells on it are. When you're starting out, you need that extra damage, and a +1 weapon with the right element will hit just as hard as a +6 weapon. That is not the right element. Very complicated stuff, but I believe in you guys. And another thing, you're not going to have perfect +3 cells or, you know, get that perfect +6 in your perk economy. So this kind of helps you with that. You have plenty of technique cells to work with to get yourself as high a Molten as possible. You have plenty of power cells to work with to get yourself as high a Rage Hunter or Overpower as possible. I'd probably go Rage Hunter. It's a very good beginner build that lets you build. At the end of the day, this game will still require some skill to play through, so get out there, get familiar with dodging, and don't forget, you always have your fellow Slayers. Thanks so much for watching. Like this video if it was helpful, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more Dauntless guides, and follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/MexiParagraph if you want to watch some high-level gameplay, or just want a place to game and chill. Yeah, I'm bad at outros, so bye Felicia.